What do you want to do? Do you want just...
So mate, we're just going to talk. So I'm going to ask questions and you're just going to answer. It's like an interview, like Parkinson. We're just having a chat. And I'm just recording what you say.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah. Alrighty, so I'm on a rare visit to Perth. I've been here for a police conference. It's 4 days before Dad's 82nd birthday, and thought we'd take this opportunity to capture some of Dad's memories for posterity's sake. So we'll give it a go. So my first question to you would be, you were born 1936. The Second World War started when you were 3. It ended when you were 9. What are your earliest memories, and do you have any memories about being a small boy in the Second World War?
Not as much as some of the things that I got into over the years, but I enjoyed most of all being on the farm, learning to drive a tractor when I was about 7 years old, and working on the farm on all the holidays. A little bit of money obviously, but I enjoyed it level.
What so going back to before the Air Force, you said you worked on the farm, but you didn't. You grew up in the village. Were you actually on the farm, or?
The farm was about 200 metres from our house where we lived.
Was it your farm? Was it the family farm?
No, it wasn't our farm or the family. It was a family of Perth, obviously, farmed them, and they'd farmed this several hundred acres.
Yep.
They'd farmed that for some 50 years with the offspring and others that involved in that family.
What were they farming?
It wasn't very much in the way of cows and pigs and things like that. It was wheat, barley, oats, things like this. And the system itself, it rounded out from the farmhouse, and it then went into various lots which were the seedlings, things like that.
Yeah.
So it was a good time.
And what are your? So you're the youngest of John, who's passed away, of course,
Yes.
and June, who's still with us.
June is still with us.
And
Chris has passed away.
Yeah, Chris has passed over as John's
yeah.
wife.
Yep.
And June is still with Tom over in the UK. Is Tom still with us?
Yeah,
Yep.
both of them
Pretty fit and
in
healthy.
90s, and
Yeah.
they're fantastic.
So you were the youngest. Were they involved in the farm as well?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So all right. And what are your recollections of your mum, who we know passed away at a relatively young age, and your dad? What are your recollections of your mum and dad?
My mother sort of held the house together with people and furniture and everything like that. She was always wanting to put in something in the house that made it look a bit better, because don't forget, this is wartime.
Yeah.
And there was not everything that could be made available. So she was always trying to better the house. And I don't know whether it was that caused her to be ill or what it was, but she apparently suffered from Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
And she had many operations down in London. I used to drive her down there, and she'd have the medical operation, and it went on to when Mum was 70, and at 70 she, what was it, 70? Somewhere
She was younger than that, wasn't she? I thought she was a lot younger than that.
Yeah,
your
she
mum.
was. I can't remember what the year was now, but she was down at June's house in the slower part of the UK, and while she was down there she passed away, and
Right.
funeral was down there. So
did you go to your mum's funeral?
I was in Australia.
Oh wow!
At that stage.
Oh, okay.
And so there's no way I could make it to be at the funeral.
Wow!
And so that carried on with Mum.
So you were pretty close to your mum, weren't you? Well,
yes, I mean, I was the baby of the family, but she was doing more because the two men, Dad and John, they just worked and slept, worked and slept. There was no, you know, I'm not working today or something like that. It was wartime and all sorts of things had to go out the window like that. It was a time of, you know, is this going to happen? Bombs were falling about 2 miles away from where we lived, and that was because it was a ball bearing plant, and it was ball bearings, the manufacture of were a prized item, and so planes would have a go at bombing this place. Not always succeeding, but
yeah,
they did, and I lost an uncle through the bombing.
Wow.
And another area where I was involved was we used to take a holiday. Didn't cost very much, less than a shilling. We would be able to go from Farndon, where we lived, 60 miles to the coast.
Right.
And we would go there and stay with one of my aunties there. And the bombers came over, and then once they'd disappeared, everybody went down to the beach where they were looking at the big holes that the bombs made, something like this.
So you do remember a fair bit.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I remember is that when these bombers came over, I was bundled into the staircase and underneath the staircase just in case.
Right.
And I had to stay there while the bombs were coming.
Wow.
It was interesting, but again, you never know what was going to happen, so a little bit frightening.
I remember you saying that you also recalled they came and cut off all the steel balustrading out the front of the house.
All the raw time works and things like that, purely to make tanks and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, but it wasn't getting into the Air Force until I was 15, and that started it all with a program that they had called Boy Entrance.
Yeah.
And at 15 years old, you were basically taught a schooling again, grade 1, grade whatever, and it gave a lot of people the benefit of another, I don't call it education, and it is that, but it's not on a great level. That's very true. It was well looked for because, again, you're going back to a situation which was a wartime thing, and to get away to go to the beach was quite an outing for us. So we looked for it just in case. We were never even certain whether we were going to stop from going to the coast or what, but it was very nice in the time, and we caught up with family while there because we had a couple of aunties, and looking up and down the beach was a daily occurrence. Sort of thing. It was interesting.
And so you mentioned you saw the advertisement for the RAF, and you went as a boy entrant, and then how did you? About 1951, I guess it would have been, early 50s. So a lot of your instructors and all that would have been, war heroes. Sometimes they would have had all these war stories, literally.
Yes.
And how did it come about that you got into the trade you ended up with in the avionics, and how did that happen?
Well, it happened purely from me wanting to go and work overseas. that was critical in my goal in life. I didn't have many of them, but I wanted to work overseas, and that was, I thought, was the best way of approaching it. I was selected to join the Boy Entrance School, and that was in 1952, in May 1952, and I did a year of training, right from the wearing of the union and various other aspects of early days in the RAF, and most of the time was spent on training, and my title, if it's a title, at that stage was to be air electronics, means fitting things to aeroplanes, and it was
which would have been a fairly new trade at the time. I mean, they had developed ground radar. Had they developed airborne radar at that time?
Yeah, it was something like that, because it was coming to a conclusion for the V-bombers to be approved to fly, and my training had been to fit all the electronic equipment on the V-bombers before they left the factory in Woodford, which was where they were manufactured.
V-bombers being?
V-bombers was the Vulcan.
Vulcan, yeah.
Had another V-bomber, was the Valiant.
Yep.
And the third one was the Victor.
Right. Okay.
And these formed the backbone of the
Bomber Command.
Yeah, Bomber Command, and they were various airfields around England as they were delivered to
and they
to the Air Force.
They were jet aircraft that replaced the Lancasters and the Shackletons and that, weren't they?
They replaced the Lancaster for sure, because these were just going out of service as the Vulcans came into service. They
entered the jet age.
They certainly entered the jet age, although somewhere in between was the Canberra bomber.
Yeah. And
that was a twin-engine jet bomber. Not very practical because it didn't carry much of a bomb load, but at least it was something for them.
And they used that. Australia operated those, we know, the RAAF, and they were used more for photo reconnaissance, I think, more than bombing in the end.
Just going back on that photographic session, then I was sent to British Guyana. No, I was sent to Trinidad, and I stayed at Trinidad while we did a photographic survey of British Guyana. And so I was living at the airport hotel for 6 weeks while we were doing this this photographic session on the bombers, and they could only do it in the mornings, early mornings, because the rest of the day was cloudy and we couldn't take shots. So early in the mornings, and it was certainly different to the earlier days where we'd had various other things to contend with. This was like a long holiday, so I enjoyed it.
So you went to a number of bases around the UK. Waddington, Scampton, was they some of the bases?
Yeah.
Scampton, where you did a lot of your training at Scampton?
For some reason, Scampton and Waddington were next door to each other, but there were small airfields all around the UK, and it was obviously a factor that they wanted the latest people who had been training, they'd wanted them on the various places where the Vulcans were going to be. So you didn't always know where you were going to be posted to until the actual time came.
Right.
But Vulcan bomber was the latest in in techniques regarding not only electronics but warfare by the
guidance systems and nav and electronic warfare type stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't in anything like the bombing of the places or anything to do with that, apart from one factor that I had a flight on a Vulcan that was going on a mission, but only over the US, not the US, the UK, and I was fortunate enough to have a ride on the Balkans. It was quite a thing. Not everybody got to go on there.
And I tell us about the world tour that the Vulcan went on, as the British were trying to sell the Vulcan to countries around the world, and I understand it came to Australia and New Zealand, and I'll let you tell the rest of the story, but you had some fortunate luck with your appendix and the ensuing event that happened at the Vulcan in Heathrow.
Well, first of all, we had a goal for the Vulcans to be ready for a world trip. One Vulcan was selected to go on a world goodwill tour. And again, it was in 1968 or something of that nature. I'd have to check that because I can't remember the name of that.
That's all right.
But the Vulcan was scheduled to go on this trip, and the support party was in 3 constellations, Shackletons.
Shackleton, yeah.
Yeah. And so as we progressed, we get to a place in Libya called Tripoli, and the aircraft would be prepared, ready for the next one, but the Shackleton jumped 2 ahead, so that when the plane was there, it was just a matter of hopscotch and
leapfrogging,
so that they were there to prepare the Vulcan for the next leg.
And was that the first time you'd been to Australia with the when on that goodwill tour?
The very first time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a bit earlier than '67 because you were out of the...
It is, yeah, because I remember I was posted to Abingdon in the last year of my service, which was 1968.
Yeah.
So coming back to that,
earlier 60s.
it must have been the centre of the 1950s.
Okay. Right.
Training was done, yeah, so middle to late 50.
So, and the story of what happened to you in New Zealand and the fortune that followed on, with the misfortune back at Heathrow with that Vulcan. Do you want to tell us about that?
That was a terrible thing to happen, but to get there we had to go from Libya. We went to Aden. The jumping of the other aircraft were sent on their way, and because we had a small problem of some of the metal working on the Vulcan, it wasn't always an on-time affair, and we had to sit around for 2 days in Aden while they had some special metallurgical people come out and do what was necessary on it. Nothing serious apart from the fact that you couldn't fly with it because it was an open hole, and that would disrupt the avionics and everything else. So we were in Aden. We decided that we'd have a walk to the nearest village. And while we were in this village, there were a couple of youngsters came up, and they said, have you got any money? And we had a Scotsman with us, and he said that, I've got £1 here. If you bring me the change in for your local currency, I'll let you have a half of this £1. And of course, while that was going on, I felt something on my waist, and it turned out to be this lad trying to get his hand in and pinch it. So I clip around the ears, and of course off they went. But not before the Scotsman got his money back. So we didn't lose anything at it, and they weren't very old, these youngsters. The areas there.
But what happened in New Zealand?
And we then, from Aden, we went to Singapore.
Yep.
And Singapore, we switched and went down to Adelaide.
Right.
Adelaide, the Vulcan was there serviced again, ready to go to New Zealand. For some reason, they decided, or somebody decided, to pinch my suitcase, and I had to beg, borrow and steal just a pair of socks and a shirt and that, until I could get somewhere. And as it turned out, when we approached the New Zealand Air Force stores, they wouldn't have anything to do with it. And so we waited until the next trip, which was to New Zealand, and the first day we arrived there, they fitted me out with all the clothes that I could do with it.
Right. Okay.
So that was quite good. And then, of course, at the end of the first day there, I developed appendicitis, had to go in hospital and have the appendix out. And they said that I had to remain in hospital to recuperate, and I was there for 12 days.
Right.
Today they take you standing up, and it was just so strange. But being there and in the hospital for so long, a lot of people from the surrounding areas came into the hospital to see me and wish me well, and brought me chocolates and all sorts.
So people you didn't know, just
people,
random.
This was people I didn't know. Yeah,
Random people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a nice one. That I would be going home by boat from New Zealand back to the UK, and this was going to be a 3-month holiday for me on the boat. So I was jumping up and down. It was great news. And then about a week before I was due to go, I had a telegram from the UKLSLS people, which is the service liaison staff, and they said, Air Ministry in London have advised us that they want you back as soon as possible, and you're on this flight to Singapore, I think it was the next day or something like that. So
that was the end of your boat trip.
that was the end of the big holiday that it was going to be.
But what happened about the Vulcan at Heathrow? I know I've asked people watching this, think I've been harping on it for 30 minutes, but
the first day in New Zealand, we had the appendix, we had the news where I was going to be going back, and I think the Vulcan stayed at a Hakia in New Zealand for about 3 days, and was then back on its way to the UK, but without me. And I was on the boat. No, it wasn't on the boat at all, because the boat, we need to think about this. New Zealand 12 days in hospital, was then by plane to Wellington, catch Wellington, get the plane, Wellington to Singapore, Singapore to the various places, Brindisi and that, to make it back to the UK. The Vulcan carried on with its goodwill tour to the other areas that we're going to, and I don't really know which they were. But then the Vulcan was on its way back, and on its way back, arriving at London Airport, it was in foggy weather, and it was brought down in a cabbage field, and it was thought at that stage that the Air Marshal leading the group had been at the wheels, at the controls I should say, and once it hit the ground they tried to go around again, but it was too much for the Vulcan, and it finished itself off in the final turn of events. I'm not sure on the dates and things of that. There was 2 crew chiefs on board, and the 5 others, apart from 2, the 2 up the top, Air Marshal was supposed to be flying it, we think, and Squadron Leader Howard, he should have been in the left-hand seat and was in the right-hand seat. So I don't think it ever came out as to the final outcome of what happened.
So they all died in that crash, didn't they?
Not the 2 pilots.
2 pilots survived,
yeah,
including the chief,
3 crew down below,
yeah,
plus 2 crew chiefs.
Yeah.
Was 5 that died in that. The 2, because the 2 up the top bang out.
Right. Okay.
So.
And how, was that? My recollection from stories, and maybe got it wrong, was that was on quite close to Heathrow, almost on approach to Heathrow.
Yes, that's right.
And the other thing I'd heard, and maybe it's again maybe I got it wrong, was that you were supposed to be on that final flight. Is that correct? That you were going to be. You were going to be.
I think every time we've talked about this with Adam and Peter and anybody else, I don't know how it came about. I was never to go on that.
So that's not true.
That's not true.
Okay, so
that's not true.
All right, because and I don't know why it is, but it's always been one of those things.
But it was checked on by about a dozen people, over the years.
Right.
And I said, well, I don't know where it comes from, because
wasn't there a newspaper clipping that I saw once in your local paper about the Vulcan which associated you with it? Is that where it came from? I remember seeing in recent times some clipping. Anyway, we put it to bed that Dad wasn't supposed to be on that Vulcan that crashed, and it's an urban myth, so we can put that to bed forever.
Glad I wasn't on it anyway.
Well, you weren't on it, but that you weren't even planned to be on it. Which is another important chapter of your life, because of course Barbara, your first wife, and of course Roy. So do you want to talk about your time in Germany and Barbara, who's of course no longer with us? And
Barbara, my wife, went with me after being in Germany for 2.5 years. I'd met Barbara in my last year, and we got married and posted to Scampton.
Right.
Before we get to Scampton, of course, we were in Germany and a few other places besides, but Germany was the longest, being 2.5 years
Right.
there. And there was not much to do in Germany. There was no action or anything like that. It was purely a maintenance thing.
What
And-
aircraft are you working on in Germany?
And the aircraft in there was Vampires.
Oh, right. Okay.
Now, bear in mind that all the training that I'd overdone over the last few years were all designed for V-bomber aircraft, and so I really had very little to do. So I put in my time teaching people to drive, and this was the front line of the Air Force, and there was the Vampire, and there was
Meteor?
no, not a Meteor. It
Lightning?
no, too early for the Lightning. Swift,
Right. Wow.
Swift,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was a funny part of my life there, teaching people to drive when I mean, they were Air Force personnel,
Yeah.
but at the same time.
You're a driver trainer. So one of the things that even now is I'm interested in how quickly how quickly you picked up and still to this day have a very good appreciation of the German language. And I'm interested in how that came. Maybe it was just to impress Barbara, which obviously would have helped. And I know you used to converse with her parents, and so you obviously immersed yourself in the German culture rather than where you were. How did all that come about? How did you blend so well with and pick it up as readily as you did?
I don't think I can tell you that, because it happened. One day I would be talking German, the next day English, and so on. I don't really have any knowledge of how it happened. My brother spent a year in Germany. He couldn't speak a word.
Really? And he married Chris, who
And
was
he
German.
married Chris, was German, yeah. So
you don't really recall just
I
having
mean,
to click.
I never went to school to learn any. I never read any books of any note. So it was a very strange situation where I was able to converse with any of them at a reasonable level. We don't know why or how.
And what's been interesting to me is obviously in later years that we've sort of had Roy and Ken have been a bigger part of our lives here in Australia.
Yeah.
And how easily you might not have spoken German for 10 years perhaps. You might have breaks, and yet as soon as they arrive, or when I've seen you meet German people when you came out to Ayers Rock that time, it's like it's like riding a bike type thing.
Yeah. And I must say that I had enjoyed it all, but it was I would have liked to have built on it. And over the years now, starting up here, and it's gradually getting less and less to be able to converse with people. But I do still approach people. If I hear them talking German, I would approach them and explain why I'd be talking to them.
Can you, again, just for the posterity's sake, answer the next question in German? There's been